Post-traumatic stress disorder was brought on by combat stress of Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. It can be triggered by seemingly routine events on the roadway, creating a second front for returning convoy duty veterans. A civilian following too close, debris on the side of the roadway, a traffic jam, or a suspicious vehicle all could be triggers for hypervigilance and anxiety. In the combat zone, hypervigilance and acute awareness are positive adaptations. The leading cause of death among returning veterans is automobile crashes. When you add alcohol to aggressive driving, anxiety, and roadway avoidance, the mix can become fatal. The drug alcohol dampens the neocortical and frontal lobe functions and heightens the re-experiencing of combat stress symptoms. Erratic driving on the roadways caused by post-traumatic stress disorder can cause crashes. Many returning combat veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder self-medicate with alcohol, and some then drive. Drunk driving is but a symptom of PTSD. Repeat drunk driving arrests among returning combat veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder occur more frequently as anxiety levels increase, the sleeplessness continues, and the nightmares remain. Frequently, alcohol abuse and social isolation become a new reality on the second front, and no one seems to understand, not the family and not the friends. Combat stress produces a disconnect, both psychological and social. The only place where a soldier feels normal is in the combat zone. Multiple deployments are the new normal. With each deployment, post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms worsen exponentially. Some soldiers welcome the hypervigilance and acute awareness as a survival mechanism.
I do feel like some things do trigger it. Like when you see a guy on an overpass, that always freaks me out. I'm always watching to see if they drop something. It's just habit, and you know, it's also a fear now. It really does scare the hell out of me. You know, I'll see, you know, if I see a box on the side of the road, it makes my heart jump a little, you know, and I can feel my blood pressure going up. It's just things like that bring back memories is what sets it off. You know, crowds. I don't really like crowds. I'm not saying I never go in them. I just don't like them, and it makes me nervous. I feel like I'm an alien in a crowd, I can tell you that.
You know, the other day I was driving down Route 8, and there was a box, like literally a cardboard box sitting on the side of the road, and I immediately switched into the other lane, and I like zoom past it. I'm going like 80 on a road that's 55, and I finally get clear of it. I look back, it's not explode, you know, it hadn't done anything, and I'm like, God, it's so stupid. Why do I do that? You know, I know that nothing's going to happen, but yet I can't get this feeling, this action, whatever it is that I do, out of my brain. You know that it's safe here, but you still have that voice in the back of your head that's saying, there's something out there. You need to be careful.
The anxiety, it seems to take hold so fast. It really does. It doesn't slowly creep in. It doesn't seem to, you know, just slowly take over. It just seems to hit you, like almost suddenly, like just a rush of blood. You know, if you see something on the side of the road or somebody cuts you off, or, you know, it's where somebody would feel that road rage, they just suddenly get upset, and, you know, then they'd calm down. It's 10, 20 times that. It's just, you feel like somebody just put your life in danger, like you were standing on the edge of the cliff and somebody just nudged you.
Well, I had 3 DWIs when I got home from Iraq, just pretty much one after another. When I got back from Iraq, I drank to die. Plain and simple, I wanted to die.
Brian was drinking a lot. I just wanted him to snap out of it, but it's not as easy as that. So at that time, he was just basically self-medicating and, you know, not being responsible. And it was catching up with him. He ended up with 3 DWIs. He kind of just, I don't know, it seemed like he just got out of it. By the fourth one, that was just awful. That was terrible. I thought he was going to jail. I thought that jail would do him no good. Luckily, he was offered the program to do the counseling.
Driving could act as a trigger for Brian or any Iraq or Afghani vet, because a lot of the situations, the traumatic events that they're witnessing are happening on the road in convoys. So anything can look like an IED. You know, anything is being used as IEDs over in combat situations. So when they're home and they're driving down the road, you know, even a minor piece of trash on the side of the road can act as a trigger. They see something, it triggers their memories, it triggers something to happen over there, and very quickly they can, you know, mentally return to being in the war zone, and their PTSD symptoms can become very severe. Returning combat veterans may turn to alcohol in hopes that it will numb some of the pain, not unlike other people's abuse of alcohol. But when they wake up the next day, they realize that it does not make the PTSD go away. It might help them get through a night, but it's not going to help them long term.
Amongst other things, post-traumatic stress disorder is about avoidance. Avoidance of remembering, avoidance of reminders of danger, avoidance of one's emotions, avoidance of dreams of traumatic experiences. And alcohol is unfortunately, for a brief while, really good at helping avoid some of those problematic areas of life experience. Driving is very problematic for Afghanistan and Iraqi veterans because of the prevalence of IEDs. Anything could be that's on the road that's untoward, earth that's disturbed, bags, discarded bottles, anything could be a potential threat to life and limb. So all veterans who have experienced convoy duty or moved from spot to spot in either country are hypervigilant when they're on the road. They don't turn that off when they come back to the United States. And in fact, it's very distressing for them because the way that we civilians drive feels very provocative and dangerous to them.
When I first got to the VA, I had a lot of trust issues. I was also, again, you know, very paranoid. I didn't know if they could help, be quite truthful with you. I thought I was a lost cause. I convinced myself I was pretty much dead. Jason earned my trust simply by trying to understand me and not being fake or uptight. He just seemed like your average Joe that you could just sit down and talk to. You know, he wasn't stuffy by any means. You know, he'd crack a joke and he'd relax you. And, you know, he would let you do things on your own time, but also trying to, you know, discuss better ways of handling things is what helped me. And I'm still not fully recovered here. I'm still with Jason, by the way. But I certainly owe my life to the VA and that program, without a doubt, and Dr. Jason Gallo. I wouldn't be here.
Brian would deal with his symptoms on a day-to-day basis, but things would trigger his symptoms and make them worse, almost unbearable. When those things would occur, he would turn to alcohol and binge drink to the point where he would black out and not be able to remember anything. Those were the occasions that he would wind up getting DWIs. The second and third one that he got, he didn't drink for the 18 months in between the two occurrences. One occurred after a night of drinking with a fellow veteran who asked him some questions about Iraq, and it triggered some thoughts for him. He turned to binge drinking, hoping that it would help him cope or help him forget some of the things. That resulted, he drove home that night, and that resulted in a DWI. He was shamed by this, didn't drink for around 18 months, self-imposed sobriety, and then he witnessed something that triggered memories of his friends again, and as in kind of an act of desperation to try to deal with some of the pain, he started drinking and drank very heavily. He hadn't drank for 18 months since the previous DWI that he received, and he was doing better for him. He still was dealing with significant PTSD symptoms, but he was watching a movie and it triggered his symptoms to a more severe level than even he was dealing with on a daily basis, and that's why he tried to drink some of the pain away. He got behind the wheel and got his 4th DWI.
With every war our country's participated in, we've learned about what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder, what we used to call combat neuroses, what we used to call before that shell shock. We've learned and forgotten typically. With the right frequency, intensity, and duration of trauma exposure, you could create post-traumatic stress disorder in the strongest human being on the planet. So what does that say about multiple deployments? Well, multiple deployments are increased frequency, increased intensity, and increased duration. With combat veterans, the current group, about 1.75 million have completed their military commitment. Of that 1.75 million, 50% have registered at the VA. Of the 50% registered at the VA, nearly 50% are presenting for mental health concerns, most frequently post-traumatic stress disorder, major depression, or the combination. Multiple deployments is a certain recipe to increase the prevalence of post-traumatic stress disorder in our combat veterans.
The perfect storm for post-traumatic stress disorder is absolutely multiple redeployments, just going back over and over again. And my personal opinion, what I feel is I've had a fairly continuous deployment experience. It's been about 14 months over there, about a year and a half home, another year over there, about a year home, a little bit less, and then another year over there. It's like my entire 20s have been this on and off, split between two worlds. I'm going back pretty soon for my 4th deployment. As far as the post-traumatic stress disorder side of it, I feel as though that each time you get back, I don't want to say that it gets worse, because better and worse are kind of subjective terms of severity. But when you go over multiple times, it becomes deeper ingrained each and every time. It becomes harder and harder to separate the two. I feel comfortable in knowing that these issues that I have, these feelings that I have, they are going to be important to me. They're going to help me when I go back over there. Because over there, it's easier. I don't care what anybody says. It makes sense over there. Once you've gone over and you've come back, you've survived and you're still in one piece, and everything, you come to realize that things back here in society are just so much more complicated.
I think that PTSD is not, people think of PTSD as this really bad thing. It's, oh, you have PTSD, I feel so bad for you. And PTSD is a hyper sense of awareness. It's all this training that you've endured and you've taught, and it's literally in you. It's like part of your blood. You do this without thinking about it. It's reacting without thinking about it. And that's PTSD. PTSD is not being able to turn it off. And that's what people suffer from.
One of the reasons that the combat veteran with PTSD wants to go back to the war zone is those behaviors are effective there. They're ineffective here and can end up hurting loved ones, winding up in prison.
After fending for your life for a year, they just seem meaningless. It doesn't make sense. Over there, you have a straightforward job to do, and you have 2 or 3 different jobs maybe, but one of them is always to just stay alive, and it's the simplest thing. When you come home, everything else seems more complicated. So you'll find more often than not that a soldier who's having serious post-traumatic stress disorder issues can actually, without any problem, go back to the stressor, which was the combat zone, and they'll flourish, they'll thrive. They'll feel more at home than they do here at home.